Good afternoon and warm welcome to all of you for this session on Stop Assuming and Start Validating. My name is Subramanian. As was introduced, I represent the Gopalakrishnan-Deshpande Centre for Innovation in IIT Madras. This center was established way back in 2017 in a way to help this early stage research ideas in deep tech STEM institutions to understand what it means to commercialize research. Commercialization of research in India has not taken place in a big way for a long time, and of late there seems to be a lot of interest. So the founders of our center, Chris Gopalakrishnan and Deshpande, realized that the deep tech science research taking place in the academic institution probably goes to levels of publishing a paper, or at best goes to publishing an IP. Beyond that, the science doesn't reach the world outside. So the objective was, can we spark an innovation among the mindsets of academicians to think about ways in which they can translate their deep tech research into meaningful solutions to society. That's how we started in 2017. Gopalakrishnan-Deshpande Centre is modeled in the way National Science Foundation, the US, operates their core ICOT program, which essentially helps the startup co-founders from the research labs, funds them to help them to take the research ideas to meaningful solutions through the startups. It has been an exceptionally successful program for National Science Foundation, and we started replicating the model in India in 2017, and we had the help of many US universities coming and helping us in the early stages. Today we are well set. The past 7 years we had worked with 125 academic institutions in the country and engaged with about 550 startups and startup ideas to see if they can take the idea forward. I'm happy to see that 50% of the teams have gone ahead, build the business, raise commercial money, and are into revenue stage now. So essentially what we're trying to do is that by scientifically going through the startup formation process, by understanding the customer needs first, before building a solution, before building a company, saves the difficulties of a potential startup failure. That's the, can we improve the odds of success for a startup to go all the way? That's the basic premise in which our programs have been structured. Before I go ahead and introduce my colleague KV Anand, I would like to understand for this audience, how many of you are already into startups, built a company? Can you raise your hands, please? Yeah, that's about 12, 15 of you. How many of you are aspiring to build a company? Very hesitant hands are being shown. As the previous speaker mentioned, that startup is a tough game, right? And our talk will probably address more towards the aspirants who are quite keen to start up their own startups and learn the nuances quite early and probably benefit by some of our programs right through the year. So that's the background of GDC. GDC has been operating with the STEM institutions, as I mentioned, and we also work with Government of India through Department of Science and Technology and Niti Aayog. We have been jointly working with DSC to help STEM researchers to build their businesses the past year or so. We also been working with large corporates, what you call it as open innovation platforms, where we help multinational companies to discover deep tech science research from the country to build solutions which will provide the breakthrough for tomorrow. For example, we started off working with Huddle Global, who are the steel giants, and they want to find out deep tech technologies in the country for decarbonizing the steel manufacturing, which is a tough business. Steel is considered to be one of the largest carbon polluters in the world, with about 8% of the carbon pollution coming in from the steel industry alone. So we did ultimately, after 8 months of intense work with Indian scientists, we came with 3 teams who are working very closely with ArcelorMittal in solving their carbon emission problems. Last year we had a detailed work with the TDK Technologies, Japan, on discovering non-invasive medical devices which are really useful for the Indian population. And again, this year we are working with the Shell Global for identifying deep tech science teams in decarbonizing the fuel space using artificial intelligence platforms to we can speed up the process of material discovery, process discovery, etc. And we work on multiple platforms like academics, government, and industry. So on the whole, we would love to hear from you the question and answers after KV Anand completes his sessions. and maybe throw open a few minutes of Q&A. And if any of you are interested to learn these, please do come and join us. And we offer this program with absolutely no cost to the participants, as we are all funded by the alumni of IIT and partly by government. So that's the broad introduction about what we do in GDC. And I think Anand is ready to come on stage. I would like to introduce my colleague KV Anand. He has been into the early stage startup process for more than a decade now. And apart from he being a Chief Innovation Officer with GDC, he is also a Professor of Practice in IIT Jammu, teaching a course on innovation. So over to you, KV. Thank you. Yeah.
So understanding where the opportunity lies, not just figuring out who could be the customer, but also where the opportunity lies, is customer discovery. I think we are right. So I'll just take some time to explain what customer discovery is, and if possible, and if all of you are interested, we can do some quick activities also. Will you be interested? Okay, thank you. This is not new to you. All of you know this, right? Is anyone here surprised? Anyone here thinks it is more than 90%? Yes? Yes? What would it be? 95, 98, 99? It's 1% successful, so 99% failure rate. That's scary, right? But most of us believe we will be in that 1%. Why? What does failure mean? You fail to go to the market, serve customers, make money, survive, grow, right? That is what, when you're not able to do that, that is when we say it is failure. So all of us believe that we are in that 1 or 2% that succeeds. Why is that?
Are we considering tech startups only?
No, any startup. It may slightly vary, the success rate. That's why I'm being safe by saying 90%. Right? Deep tech startups have got a very higher failure rate than this. Medtech startups have got a long gestation period, and they also have a high failure rate. Right? But 90% is being very safe. Certainly it's more than 90%. All right? So they don't fail because their technology did not work. They don't fail because they ran out of money. They don't fail because there was a problem within the founding team. All reasons exist, but if you look at this number, out of the startups that fail, almost half of them fail because they built something that nobody needs. How do we digest this? We are smart people. We are very capable people. Why will we build something that nobody needs? Sounds ridiculous, right? But data tells us that this is happening. And this has not changed much in the last 20 years or so. The rate still remains the same. And it's not just tech startups. It's startups across. And it's not just in India. It is across the globe. So we make something that nobody needs. How do we understand this, and how do we explain this? Any founder who's already building something and you've not yet gone to the market, can you please tell me whether you're building something that the market is waiting for or not? Anyone? You're building something that the market is waiting for, right? How did you know that? Because of government regulations, okay? So if the government says you have to do it, you have to reduce carbon by X% by Y year, then anybody who tries to help companies reduce carbon will succeed. Is it true?
Not 100%.
Not 100%. So how do we know that people are actually waiting for our product? Because sometimes we can be easily misled also, because there will be always some early customers for any business. The first 5 customers, the first 10 customers will make you feel that you have actually cracked it. 50% of the startups have failed after going to the market in 6 months. How does that happen? So they've gone to the market, they've started earning revenues. 6 months later, 50% of them shut down. Why does that happen? The early signs were very promising. People were buying. And then what happened? Anybody can guess what could have gone wrong? Yes? Sorry? You are not communicating what the audience wants to hear, and therefore?
We're not delivering what they expected.
Possible, right? But that's an easy problem, right? Because you can keep talking to the audience to know what they want, and you can keep delivering it to them, then your chances of success will be very high, isn't it? Logically. If you sustain that. Is there a problem in sustaining that? Okay. What could come in the way of sustaining it? The funds. What is the best funding for a startup? Best form of funding for a startup?
I think it's
Customer money. Right? So revenue is the best form of funding a startup.
I would like to say another point here is that you're not building with the customer, you're building for the
For
customer.
the customer, correct.
So what happens is there could be a lot of mismatch between the customer's wants, needs, and what you're actually giving the customer at any given point of time.
Absolutely, correct. That was my opening line. We believe that we are building for the customer. And that's a belief, it's not necessarily a fact. So customer discovery is all about validating rather than assuming. So the topic itself is that stop assuming and start validating. That is what customer discovery is all about. So this definitely makes it critical for us, for any startup founder, to start thinking about what people need before we start building what we think they need. Right? So this is typically how it should be, but working with, I have worked with probably about 1,600 founders in the last 8 to 9 years, and about 600 startups. Invariably, they start, can you guess where they start? Sorry? They start with an idea, okay, fine. Here, where did they start? They start with this, building. The moment we get an idea, and because we are capable people, when we see a problem or when we see something happening in our personal lives or in our friend circle, people talk about it, somehow we identify something that we think needs to be solved, and then we are capable of solving it, we start thinking about the solution. So idea is where everything starts. There's no dispute. Everything starts with an idea, but what do you do immediately after you get an idea? Most of us start building. And then we try to test it in the market. We call it MVP, sometimes we call it prototype, we call it whatever, but we start building. And the sequence is really where the challenge is. It's not that you should not build, but what do you build? And when you are starting to build, how do you know that what you are building is what people are going to buy and pay for? You may have some idea about what your product can do, but you have no idea about what people want or people need, or what problem they want you to solve for them. Your product will be perfect. It will get the job done, right? So that's really the challenge. Instead, we start by coming up with an idea. The idea itself is a thought. It's not anything more than a thought. So we come up with an idea. We probably have some assumptions about it. Traffic in Bangalore is really bad. I'm sure everyone wants to somehow beat the traffic. Yes, it's a thought. It's a good idea. I think it'll be good if we create a company which flies air taxis. Good idea. No doubt about it. And they do exist already. So I don't even have to guess whether people will actually want it or not. But then how do I go from there and start actually understanding who will need it and why will they need it and why will they pay for it. Generally, we think everybody is suffering from traffic and therefore they will be very happy if I did that. But they're not necessarily my customers. Who am I building for? So therefore, before we start building the solution or the product, we are recommending that understand the problem deeply. So there is a famous quote from Yuri Levin. He says, fall in love with the problem and not with the solution, right? Which is true. We are very much in love with the solution that we are building, but not understanding the problem that really needs to be solved and for whom. Problem cannot be independent of people. Can you think of any problem without the human being in it? Can you think? Is there any problem without the human being in it? Or animals? Possible? Possible? No? Not possible. So therefore, the first question is who needs it and why? And that's what we are trying to address through changing the way in which we go. And you start making assumptions, make them testable hypotheses, and then you test them to validate or invalidate. Both are possible when you're trying to test your hypothesis. This is very similar to the scientific experiments, the same process. In scientific experiments, we start with hypothesis, and then we test, and then we finally validate or invalidate. It's the same process. That's what customer discovery is. So it is a structured way of learning, and we are not learning for the sake of learning. We are truly understanding the needs of the people who we think will pay for the solution that you are giving them or the product you are giving them. And we don't want people to say, yes, I like your product. Or we don't want people to agree with you saying, yes, I think your idea is a great idea. We want to go beyond that. So when you're testing assumptions, what you get is not information or data. What you get is evidence. Right? And how can you get evidence from someone who's not even used your product or seen your product? Is it possible? Possible. Right? So it is possible. We'll talk about what evidence really means here. It's not about how good your product is. Then this actually helps you iteratively learn. So it's not that you build a perfect product and then try to learn from customers. That's what happens in these 50% of the cases. I built a perfect product, took it to the market. Initially it was fine, but slowly people stopped coming to me. What happened? Right? Maybe they were very enthusiastic customers in the beginning, but after that there is no customers coming forward because we have not understood the need, and we are iteratively learning in the process of customer discovery, not doing one first and then doing the next one, right? And this is the first stage of customer development. And what is not customer discovery? I think there are a lot of misconceptions. Thankfully, not many people here are practicing customer discovery or very familiar with customer discovery. But general misunderstanding or misconception is this. Oh, customer discovery means I have to go and talk to people. Yes, you have to go and talk to people. But what do you talk about? And why are you talking to them? That makes all the difference. If I am going to talk to people and ask 100 people, I have this idea, what do you think about this idea? What do you get as a response? What do you get? Suppose you went and asked somebody, I have got this idea. I think I'm going to do this. What do you think? What can they tell you? They have no idea of what I am talking about, but they might, depending on who you are asking, they might say, great idea. Or some people may say, I don't know if it will work. You get all kinds of responses. How useful are those responses? You are the founder, and you're asking for people's opinions about your idea, and they will tell you. And depending on who you're asking, they'll probably be nice to you, they'll try to encourage you, and they'll give you promising answers. But how useful is it? So customer discovery is not about going and asking people, what do you think? So it's not a survey. In survey, that's what we do. Typically, you do surveys where you ask pointed questions, and most of the questions that you can ask in a survey will be closed. The answers will be yes, no, maybe. but not necessarily giving you any insight. We don't want information, we want insights which can lead to evidence. So it's not a survey. And it is not an opportunity for you to go and start sharing your idea with people and even start finding an opportunity to sell. Maybe you will be my future customer, so I will come back to you when I have the product. That's not really what customer discovery is. It's not about promoting yourself either. And it is not pitching at all. All of us think that every time when we are invited to present to someone, we should pitch. This is not pitching. You're not pitching for anything. You're only trying to understand people's needs, problems, pains deeply by getting evidence and not by simply getting them to say what you want to hear. Right? It's not getting feedback. You can't go and ask them, okay, this is how it will look. Here is a product. Do you want to try it and give me some feedback? That is not customer discovery. It's probably something that you will do later. And then, do you like my idea questions are not customer discovery. It's all about validating your assumptions about people, their needs, their problems, pains, and the need for a solution, and not validating your product. So we were very tempted to go and give the product to the customer and ask them for opinions, because when they say the product works nicely, I like it, we think that it is validation of our business idea. It is not. It is only validating, if at all, the product, and they say, yes, it works well. So that is not customer discovery. When do you do customer discovery? The moment you come up with an idea, you start thinking about customers. Customers cannot be an afterthought. We are very preoccupied with what we have to build, the solution that we need to build. But that's not really how it works. If you really want to understand customers' needs, the moment you have an idea, you also start thinking about customers. So this is a framework by Steve Blank, the Customer Development Framework. Customer Development Framework is part of Lean Startup. If you have heard about Lean Startup, it has 3 building blocks: the business model canvas, customer development, and agile engineering. Now there is a 4th, which is even before business model canvas, which is the first point of entry into this process. That's called where to play. There is a framework called Where to Play. It's a tool called Market Opportunity Navigator. That's where you start. But anyway, within the customer development framework, this is the first step. So when you get an idea, start thinking about the customer. Who needs it and why? That is a question that you need to keep asking till the time you have evidence for who needs it and why. That is what customer discovery is. And how do you do it? You start with assumptions, of course. Make them testable, hypothesis. Testable means basically you can go and have a conversation with people, but need not just get yes or no answers or come back with opinions. Instead, you get real evidence that this is a problem for the customer. And one big mistake that we make when we talk to customers is we ask questions. If I gave you a solution for traffic in Bangalore, will you like it? What are we asking for? If I asked you the question, if I can get you from here to the airport within 15 minutes, will you like it? What will you say? Yes. Right? Most of us will say yes. Somebody will probably say no. But that is about an event that has not happened. And I am just giving you an answer. It means nothing. We all, respond to surveys. How many of you respond to surveys? We have done it. And whatever we say as a response to the survey questions, do you really mean it? Yeah? I don't. I just say anything. There's no guarantee that I will live by what I have said. There's no compulsion for me to live by what I have said. So, depending on my mood at that point in time, I can say something. Or in most cases, we do not want to be seen as not knowledgeable or not cool. So we may say something just to appear right. But that is not helping. So here, when you are starting with hypothesis, you make them testable. So when you have conversations, don't ask questions about the future. Will you like it? If I did this, will you like it? Or if it happens, what will you do? Instead, ask questions about the past. Evidence is always in the past or it's currently happening. It's never in the future. Most of our questions typically are about the future. Please check yourself when you are talking to somebody next time, especially if you are trying to sell or if you are trying to pitch. Your questions are going to be about the future. Right? And then test them. There is a process for testing them. And then finally, you get evidence, come back and say, okay, my hypotheses have been validated or they have been invalidated. Now what do I do? If my assumptions have been invalidated, I have an opportunity to change my assumptions, change the segment of customers, or completely change the idea. We work with deep tech startups at IIT Madras. Like I said, we worked with about 600 plus startups. Every single startup that has come to us has changed, either the idea itself or the customer segment, or they figured that the problem that they thought needed to be solved is not what the customers needed to be solved. 100% of the time, it has changed. And there's been no exception, right? So getting evidence is what customer discovery is all about. It actually, and there is also a, something that we hear all the time. Customer discovery is a tedious process. We need to design an experiment, make assumptions, go and talk to people. And when I'm talking to people, I cannot talk about my product. I can only talk about them. I cannot talk about the future. I cannot ask them questions like, will you like it? I cannot show them the product. That's all too much. That's not natural. Let me use that time for product development, get my product right, and then let me go and sell. Customer discovery will slow me down. Actually, customer discovery will accelerate your startup. You won't even know how well it moves till you actually have done it. Right? So therefore, seeking evidence is not going to slow you down. Seeking evidence is the most important thing that will accelerate your journey. It is not even the money. Right? So you learn fast, change fast, because it's an iterative process. It's not a straight line. If anybody tells you that building a startup is a straight line, a linear process, I strongly disagree. It is not. Those who have already built startups, you will know already. It's never a straight line. It is iterative. It is messy. The process is not clean. You will keep going back and forth. And that's the power of the process. Customer discovery allows you to iterate, and that's the power. It's not a weakness of the process. So what is really required is the mindset and the attitude of the founders. And customer discovery helps you build clarity. It does not give you money, right? It's not like if I sell, I will make money. If I do customer discovery, what do I get? It gives you clarity. And clarity is the most difficult thing to acquire for anyone, right? And you may think about it as a shortcut. I'd like to, not use the word shortcut, but I'm using the word shortcut just to emphasize the fact that it does not slow you down. It actually makes you move faster. It takes you from assumption to truth very fast because you have evidence. And of course, the mistakes that we make as founders are expensive. And if we are making mistakes with somebody else's money, we probably think it's okay. And if we are making mistakes with our own money, it's not okay. But mistakes are expensive. You need to make mistakes, otherwise you're never going to learn. But it helps you reduce the cost of your mistakes. You can be wrong and you should be wrong. You must be wrong. That's the only way you can iterate. Otherwise, there's no learning. And the attitude when you're doing customer discovery is listen. This is not an opportunity for us to sell. This is not an opportunity for us to talk about all the great things my product can do and the features. So listen without any bias. This bias is very difficult for us to remove. The confirmation bias that we have in us, among all the cognitive biases, especially for founders, it's extremely difficult. It's easier said than done, but the bias is really strong. But when you do this, when you follow the process, slowly you will remove the biases and you will listen and not just try to start building solutions. If we are capable, if we are good at coding, when the person is saying something, we'll start writing code in our heads. Has it not happened to you? Oh, this is how I can solve it. The solution is already getting developed in your head. And that actually stops you from learning. And then it's not customer discovery is not about what people say, it's about what people do. What people say and what people do are not the same. Right? So this is the process which makes you observe what people do and not just listen to what people say. And you need to learn without any ego. Humility is the number one quality for any entrepreneur. And I think in the previous session also, we talked about you will go and beg. And begging is not easy. Right? And you take the opportunity to discover something rather than to conclude something even before you know anything about the customer or the market. So this is the mindset and this is the attitude required for customer discovery. Steve Blank, this is a famous quote that we always use. Steve Blank says, get out of the building. So get out of the building, when he said it, general understanding was you cannot sit in your office and understand customers' needs, so you need to step out. You need to go into the real world and actually start seeing what's happening. He goes to the extent of saying, the advantage of being in front of the person and talking to that person is you see their eyeballs widen, pupils dilate, and the breadth increasing. That is what you are missing if you are sitting in your own offices and doing brainstorming. Right? But he does not mean only that, just getting out of the building. He also means get out of your head. We are all working inside our heads, or a few people's heads, talking about the problem, talking about the need, a lot of brainstorming. Sometimes we do role plays also amongst ourselves. I'll be the customer, you be the CTO, and let us see how it goes. So don't do that. Get out of your heads, get out of your assumptions, and actually look at the customer's real behavior and not just hear what they are saying. So these are the three things that you must actually be mindful of. I don't think anybody will disagree that founders need empathy. In fact, everybody needs empathy, but founders need empathy. Empathy is not something that is touchy-feely. Empathy is real. Being able to see the world through the eyes of your customer is a very strong and a very powerful quality for all founders. So the most successful ones probably have it. That's why they have been so successful. So for you to be able to see the world through the lens of the customer, you need to have humility. Even if you're inventing something that is out of the world and think that those people will not even understand, let me just make it. They will buy it. That is not humility at all. If you have that attitude, you are never going to be able to empathize with the customer, because the attitude itself is very wrong. Curiosity is extremely important, but the curiosity should be without ego. Curiosity is not just to satisfy our ego. Curiosity is basically truly being curious and then being comfortable with being wrong. You don't have to be right all the time, and you cannot. So these three are critical when you are doing customer discovery. So let us look at assumptions. Can you do this now? Can you think of 3 big assumptions you are making about your business? I'm not specifying any assumption. You think about your business. Can you think about 3 big assumptions that you are making? Which is the riskiest assumption among the 3? They can't live without it, correct? And then what else? No competition. Then? I'll scale in 3 years. Which is the riskiest assumption among these 3? No competition is the riskiest assumption, okay? But that's easy, right? You can easily find out competition, isn't it? Is it easy or is it difficult? It's easy. It's not. So, it's not easy because information is not available. Information is available, readily available. If you search for anyone who's making a similar product, you will get a list, right? That's really where things start going wrong. If we look at competition through the lens of our product or solution, you will only see those people who are making similar products. But if you look at competition through the lens of the customer's need, there are so many other solutions available for them, and they're all competition to you. And we will be thinking that competition is only somebody who makes the same product or similar product. I don't know, any of you have heard about this example of a quarter-inch drill versus a quarter-inch hole. Anyone has heard about it? Yes, you have. So what happens when you, suppose my startup idea is to make quarter-inch drill, which is to drill holes in the wall, right? And I've got an idea, and I think I can make the world's best and most durable drill. And, competitors don't make the same quality drill. That's how I look at competition, right? So therefore, I will identify myself as I am being part of the drill making industry. That's where it starts. Hardware, drill making industry, right? And then I will put all my efforts and make the best drill better than the best in the market today. And then my expectation is people need it. And people will definitely buy this because this is the best. And one more assumption I make is, if I sell it at the same price or cheaper than the best available in the market, 100%, I would have killed competition, right? But in reality, what the customer needs is a hole, not a drill. The customer needs a quarter-inch hole. And the customer does not just want to make hole because they are bored. They want a hole for some purpose. They are trying to hang a picture, or they are trying to, put something up on the wall. And that need can be fulfilled in several ways. What are the ways that you can think of? If you want to make a hole, what are the ways in which you can make a hole? Just hammer and nail, okay? Drill machine. What else can you do? Call the carpenter, call the electrician. Somebody who has the tools will come and do it. And what else can you do? Sorry? Adhesives. Sticker, exactly. So I don't even need a hole, because my job is not to make a hole. My job is to hang something. So now, who is competition for me? Other drill makers? Or anyone who can help me hang my picture? Right? That's what happens when you say there is no competition. That's a huge risk, and it is not easy. If you start thinking about the customer's need and start looking at competition, you will actually see how they are already getting the job done, or the problem is already being solved. But we don't accept that, because we say, no, I am making sustainable fabric. Hospitality needs it. They can't survive. Their property will shut down if they don't use it. I can be the niche, yes, but that can be in several forms, right? So that's really what happens when we start making these assumptions. These are riskiest assumptions. All the three assumptions that both of you spoke about, and you said they are not assumptions, they are facts. They are the riskiest assumptions that you are making about your business. The riskiest assumption about your business will be about the customer. When I say about the customer, who is the customer? We think we already know who is the customer. You may be surprised. Second, their need, the problem or the pain, and their need for a solution. We can live with problems. Not everybody wants to get rid of all problems, right? We can live with problems. Sometimes we may identify a frivolous problem, and for us it looks like it is the biggest problem for the customer. And for them it doesn't matter at all. So these are the riskiest assumptions you could be making. And this is typically how you can start thinking about the riskiest assumptions you are making. Start thinking like this. Frame the sentences like, we believe that new mothers who are trying to get back to work are struggling with balancing between their baby, especially they are nursing, so between the baby and work, they are emotionally torn. etc., etc. You start making assumptions like this, right? But don't conclude anything. Go and validate them. So you can make assumptions about the people, you can make assumptions about their problems, their needs, and you can also make assumptions about what they value. The solution may not be what you are offering. Sometimes the problem can be real. You might have found the real problem to solve, but the way you are solving the problem may not be the right solution or the best solution for them. So that's also something that you can start making assumptions about. Why does it matter? Because this is really where your riskiest assumptions are sitting. We don't even know why we fail. It's because of this. Right? So ask these questions. Do you have evidence? Whenever you say new mothers are struggling when they are trying to get back to work and they would like my product, my service, my solution, ask yourself, is it real? What evidence do I have? And also ask, what if it's wrong? We don't ask this question because it's very uncomfortable. We fear this question, what if it's wrong? And if it's wrong, do you even have to do what you're doing? You don't have to, right? And then test them. Make these assumptions and then test them. Don't trust them. Even if you have read somewhere about the problem, and if it says that this is a huge problem, don't trust. Go and verify that, right? So the problem should really exist. It cannot be existing in your heads. And problems don't happen in a vacuum. Problems happen in a context. And there is a trigger for every problem, right? So don't trust them. This is how you go about. You start looking at the world through the customer's eyes. What is creating the problem? Regulation. I'm depending on regulation. Because they are going to implement, this regulation, everybody will need my solution. Okay, create a situation in your heads. What is happening in that situation? The regulator is cancelling the license. Okay, so what is happening then? So like that, you start thinking about what the customer sees, what the customer hears, what the customer does, what the customer says. That's called empathy. So there is a tool for that also. It's called the empathy map. All of you can use that. That actually helps you shift from your context to the customer's context. So another big challenge with customer discovery is we don't know what's the difference between survey and customer discovery. With all the startups that I have worked with, this is a big problem. And it's very difficult to, appreciate how it is different from any other conversation, whether it's a sales conversation, survey conversation, or whatever. There is a time and place for both. So the purpose of surveys are to measure something that you already know. The products are available, solutions are available, and customers are available. That's a big advantage of entering an existing market. You're not solving a new problem. You're solving an existing problem differently, maybe. If that's the case, you have a huge advantage because there's a lot of information available right in front of you. But it's all about measuring what you already know and not necessarily discovering what you don't know, which means basically you can get the whats and hows through surveys and secondary research, but you will never be able to get the whys from surveys and secondary research. We will not be able to use surveys to find out why people behave in a certain way. Can you do that? Can you do a survey to understand why people behave in a certain way? You can understand what product they are using. Survey will tell you that. You can even understand the frequency of their purchase. Surveys will tell you that. But you will never be able to get any insight about why they are doing what they are doing or why they are not doing what we think they should be doing. That's why customer discovery is very different. It is all about the unknowns. It's not about the knowns and getting to know more about the knowns. It's all about unknowns. And the biggest challenge for us, we have unknown unknowns. We don't even know that we don't know. There are lots of known unknowns and there are lots of unknown unknowns. You'll never be able to get to the unknown unknowns unless you do this. Right? And at what stage is survey useful? Once you have understood the problem deeply, maybe you can do a survey just to get a larger sample size. But this is before you start defining the problem, and definitely before you start defining the solution. And the style of the survey is usually this. It's a very structured instrument, or even if you do in person, the questions are asked and they give you the response. It's not a conversation. A survey requires you to ask questions and get answers, whether in person or online, right? So usually it will be closed. Customer discovery conversations are exploratory. You're actually truly having a conversation. One person speaks and the other person listens. Who should speak more? Customer. But if we start speaking more, what happens? It sales, right? Correct. So if you look at the data from the data perspective, you get a lot of quantitative data from surveys. And the customer discovery gets you a lot of qualitative data. You want stories from them. You don't want, them to project the future or predict the future. You don't want them to tell you, I buy soaps 4 times a month. Okay, fine. But what's the story? That's what really want, because that's really where you are making assumptions and you will never be able to discover why they do what they do. The stories will tell you that. What you gain from survey, you get answers. What you gain from customer discovery, you get the truth. You get behaviors, right? And the challenge for us is surveys are easy. You can ask 10 questions. You already have some possible answers to those questions. You don't ask open questions. It's close-ended or sometimes multi-choice. And multi-choice is also close-ended. It's not open-ended. Whereas here, you need to have some skills to, have those conversations. Conversations are difficult. Q&A is easy. You ask a question, I give you an answer, it's easy. But conversations are very difficult. Getting people to talk, you just say something and the other person speaks for 10 minutes. That's really where you start actually getting their stories, right? So that's why it's different. So discover the real behavior, not their opinions. Don't go and ask people what you want. I think that's another common thing that I hear from startups. Okay, fine, you don't want me to make any assumption, you don't want me to make the product, fine. I'll go and ask customer what you want. Are you happy? If you go and ask somebody what you want, what do you think they will tell you? They don't even know what they want. Okay, that's another myth, okay? The question is wrong. It's not about the answer, the question is wrong. Because it's not their job to find out solutions for their problems. What do you want is a solution question, right? What could be a problem question? What problem do you have? Will people answer if a stranger goes to someone and says, what problems do you have? Give me your top 10 problems, sir. Do you think they will give you? Not possible. So the questions are not okay. And typically we ask these questions. Instead, how can we ask? Anyone? Any idea? Yeah?
I strike up a conversation and then slowly get into the content of my subject, which I actually need. Understanding exactly. For example, when I was actually launching my product, it had to do with the roadside vendors, and I'm into manufacturing and producing biomass and bamboo briquettes. So I asked him like how much a kg of chicken he buys, how many pieces of barbecue he's able to produce in 1 kg of coal, because that's going to be my end.
Okay. So
And,
just an input to you.
Yeah.
When you are asking how many kgs do you buy, what chicken do you buy, also try to ask some why questions.
Right.
Right? Why do you buy this chicken versus that chicken?
Right.
Or why do you buy chicken? Or why are you even in this business? Those why questions are the ones which will actually get you the
Answer.
real truth,
Yes.
right? So it's a discovery and it's about their behaviors. Don't go by what people say, actually observe what people do. Because behaviors don't lie. I can lie to you. If you ask me, if I am a nice person, I will say yes. How do you know if I'm really a nice person or not? I'm very kind. How do you know? You'll have to just take my word for it. Right? Observe my behaviors. That's what will really tell you the truth. So always look for behaviors and don't go by what people say. Observe what people do. Right? And that is how you try to understand why they do what they do and not what they are doing or how they are doing it. They are important, but more important is why. There are 4 customer truths. They are not buying your product. We think that they are buying our product. Customers don't buy products. What do they buy then? Sorry? You can say whatever you want. They don't have to buy it. So they are buying solutions for their problems and not products, right? And solution can be anything. Okay? So we can say that they are buying solutions, but essentially what they are trying to do, all of us are customers for lots of things. How do we decide when we need something? Suppose, I'm getting ready to come to this venue and I'm ready. What do I need now? A taxi or some way of reaching this venue. So when I know that I have that need, I have several solutions. And then I have a choice of solutions and etc., etc. But I need that job done. So whether somebody sends a car to pick me up or whether I get a taxi or I walk, I need to get here by 12 o'clock. That's the job that I am trying to get done. So anything that will help me get here by 12 o'clock is a solution for me. And that's what I am buying. And if it means I am walking myself, that's your competitor. If you are a taxi operator, me walking to the venue is competition to you. So people pay money or people buy something to get a job done and not because your product is better than somebody else's. Maybe that will influence the choice of solution, but it does not mean that is the need. Most of the time, startups say that the customer's need is my product. Right? Customer's need is my product, right? It is not. Customer's need is their job to be done. So these are the 4 truths. I've been warned about the time, so I'm going to quickly go through this. This is one example for the statement. People buy progress and not products. Calendly is a good example. Calendly is not just an appointment scheduling software, even though if that's how we know it. But what they really did was they got a very important job done for customers. They gave time back to the customers. They gave time back to the customers and make them control their time. That is what was done. It was not the software, it was not the features, it was not the price, it was not anything but that. Right? The first problem is rarely the real one. The moment we think about the problem and we jump into building a solution, that may not be the problem to solve at all. Ola is an example. So when they actually went to the customers and asked them, they said, getting cabs is difficult, they are never available. And if Ola had therefore decided to build an army of cars and buy 10,000 cars and start in Bangalore, that would have been a very wrong move. That business would have shut down the day it started or even before it started. But instead, when they observed people, when they actually did customer discovery, they saw what people were doing, how they were behaving. What really they were trying to tell you is, I can't trust the system. And that is why they were able to build a solution that really worked. And of course, they had the advantage of Uber already having been launched. There are a lot of learnings there. Behaviors don't lie. Behavior doesn't lie. Zappos, I don't know how many of you know about Zappos. It's quite popular actually. Yeah. Usually people talk about Tony CA when they talk about Zappos, but the person actually, even before Tony CA, created this wonderful business was Nick, and this is what was happening. That was the first time he said people will buy shoes online. In fact, Even when shoes were available online, I took a long time to buy them online, because even clothes I can take a risk, but shoes, no. What if it doesn't fit well? Right? It's a huge problem. So it's a change in customer behavior. It's not just about an online business which is also selling shoes. It's changing the customer's behavior. So therefore, Zappos, when they decided to launch their business, the first hypothesis is, will anyone buy shoes online at all? I can't take it for granted because I am going to sell shoes at 50% discount and people will buy. And it's a very wrong start. They could have made that mistake, but he actually decided to ask this question, will anyone buy shoes online at all? And the way he actually tested the assumption was, he did not go and ask people, will you buy shoes online? What he actually did was, he took pictures of shoes from other shoe stores and he put it online, and then he tried and tested it with people, their response to what they are doing. And that is how he learned, if at all he is planning to sell shoes online, what should he be really doing? What is the real customer problem? Is it inconvenience of going to a store and buying? Or is it the fear of buying something that doesn't fit? Is it the price? Is it the selection, the colors, the variety, etc.? I can give everything, but what does the customer really want? And that's how he tested it. And now, of course, we all buy shoes online as well. And don't try to change people's lives. Don't try to change people's current behaviors and make it difficult for them. When Google Pay came here, it's a company that could have easily said, this is how people behave in the US, this is how people behave, in the UK, etc. So I will bring the same solution here. It doesn't work. So they actually observed what was happening. The business or the exchange of money was not just transactional, but it was also, there was a cultural angle to it. And they truly understood that. Therefore, they came up with a solution which did not make anyone's life more difficult, or which did not make people who will never use digital payments stay away from it. Even those people could adopt it because they didn't try to change anything in your life. They fitted their solution into your life rather than fitting you into their solution. Right? These are the 4 customer myths. Customers don't even know what they need. Usually we say this, right? Is it true? Customers don't even know what they need? Is it true? It's a myth. It's not true. What you are referring to as need is the solution. They know what they need. If I am thirsty, I know I am thirsty. But you may be trying to sell Coke to me. And Coke, I've never seen Coke in my life. So therefore, I don't know that Coke exists. I will keep drinking water. But that doesn't mean I don't know what I need. Right? This is a myth. People know their problems. People know their needs. And the other one is, they may know their needs, but they don't know how to say it. They're not very good at articulating. I need to help them articulate their needs. Fact or myth? That's a fact. It's a myth. So why do you say that they don't know how to articulate their needs? Again, if I am thirsty, I don't have any difficulty telling you that I am thirsty. Because I am not telling you that I need a beverage which does ABC, you say, okay, you don't know how to articulate it. No, I'm thirsty. I can tell you very clearly. I'm hungry. That's all. And needs keep changing very quickly. Today, they will say something, and tomorrow they will say something else. Then how do I build a product at all? Their needs don't change. Solutions change. The need to listen to music has existed for several centuries, but the solutions have changed. We started listening to radio, we then had these LPs and EPs, and then we had cassettes, and then we had CDs, we had digital players, streaming. The solutions have changed, but the need to listen to music has not changed. Okay, so we said these are the conversations, and in those conversations, it should be about the behaviors, and it's about listening. It's not about selling. It's not about pitching. So if you are asking questions like this, they are not customer discovery conversations. You may be having such conversations, asking these questions, They are not customer discovery conversation. They're not going to give you any insight about the customer's needs or problems or pains. They will only give you answers. Look at these questions. Is there any question here that is about the future? It's all about what's happening now or what's happened in the past. So these are the kind of questions that are useful if you are truly trying to understand the customer's problems and needs, right? Okay, so I think I'll just go. You can do something like this for yourself. You can come up with a plan. Try to do this, experiment this and see how it goes. There's at least one conversation every day and maintain a reflection journal. Come back and record what you have had, or if you are able to record the conversation, please record it. Because insights will not happen as you are speaking to people. They will always happen when you come back and reflect on them. And then update your assumptions. This is an iterative process. Just because you wrote an assumption today, you don't have to keep testing the same assumption for the next 3 months. As you are learning, keep changing the assumptions because it's iterative. Don't lose the power of this process. So you can try something like this. And this is something that Subbu spoke about. This is what we do, not just customer discovery, but we work with deep tech startups across the country. And as of now, we have worked with more than 120 institutions, colleges, universities, etc. And we have worked with more than 1,500, 1,600 founders and about 600 startups. And invariably, we have evidence that this works. This is not guaranteeing success, but it is definitely de-risking your startup. It improves or I would say decreases the odds of failure. Yes. Sorry, deep tech startups? Sometimes we also work with startups which are not really that deep tech, but it has got some value. It's solving a real problem. We work with them also, right? So that's what GDC does. The website address is here. You can go and look up what we do. Any questions quickly? I know we have exceeded time, but I had a secret half-an-hour buffer for my session. So I'm using it now. Questions, anyone?
But some of these are different answers. Like, for example, when Apple proposed their first product, nobody knew, or rather.
What was Apple's first product?
I mean, Apple's first product is Macintosh, but then when I am talking about an iPhone or a touch, iPod touch, or iPod, for example, see, we didn't know that we needed, and neither he asked anybody that, do you need it or not?
No, he found that there is a need. Because if you look at the solutions that had evolved, iPod was not the first digital music player, right? Creative had already launched a digital music player, and iPod did not have digital music for the first time. Napster had already done it. But still he figured that there is a need.
Right.
And that is something which we may think, customers didn't even know, but he was able to figure out the need because the challenges of being able to access that music that you need and not have to pay for an album is really what iPod actually solved. iPod's success is not the device. The real success of that is iTunes. If he had just made one more device, which is what Microsoft tried to do. I don't know if any of you have even heard about it, Zune, right? That failed miserably. Why? Because they thought it is one more device. But here it is not the device that is the innovation. The real need that it fulfilled, or the unmet need that the iPod fulfilled, was that as a customer, you don't have to buy an album and listen to only one of those songs which is your favorite. The innovation is not a device innovation or a technology innovation. It's a business model innovation. They went in, for the first time in the history, they went and spoke to the music labels and said, you need to give me rights in singles and not as albums. They made that deal, and then they made that possible through iTunes. That is the innovation. Okay. All right, everybody is getting restless. Thank you. If you have any questions, we can still talk about them. I'm going to be around. All right? Thank you.